folks, and welcome back to another episode of Video Games Small Talk. Episode 12, we're back from PAX and slightly, well, I don't know, fresher than we were on the show floor at PAX Australia on the crazy Friday. James, Patrick and Hope are here to chat about more video games. Oh my god.
There's too many.
We sure are here.
Always too many. We're back.
Actually, yeah, I think we've said that, 5 episodes in a row at this point.
It's ridiculous. So. It's like, I actually do need it to stop at this point. It's just...
It's not gonna stop.
I've just given up on being up to date, actually.
Yeah, that's it. We have to be comfortable with the fact that we are just never gonna be able to talk about video games.
I have to be on the cutting edge of everything all the time.
Isn't it the worst thing in the world where you've just got to have an opinion on things and it's like,
yeah,
but I can't. It's impossible for me to touch all of these possible.
That's why you just get tragic throwaway opinions like me. So someone's like, hey Hope, what do you think of this thing you've never heard of? And I'm like, fucking hate it.
I hate it.
That's the only way to be a person on Twitter these days, so it's fine.
Yeah.
I have very serious opinions about this thing that I know nothing about.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that you guys probably know nothing about, I've been playing Grid.
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct
right.
surmise.
So are there legendary cards?
Not that I've found. No, I don't think so.
Lame.
I will not turn you into stone and talk about this for millions and millions of years. But yes, I've been playing the new Grid. I've had it for quite some time now, and it's a pretty stock standard arcade racer, really. If you've ever, I can't imagine any of you would have played the original Grid, but anyone listening, if you ever played the original Grid, it pretty much reminds me
I
just
actually
of
did
that.
play the original Grid.
Did you? Hey.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had a demo disc.
Hey, nice.
So
I mean, this reminds me pretty much of that. It could almost be a remaster of Grid, to the point where.
Does it feel like an old game then?
It kind of does. Like, everything looks nicer and looks like it's sort of up to date again. But this whole, like... I feel like I've played this game before. I feel like I played this game, 10 years ago.
You feel like it doesn't offer anything new to the genre or anything?
No, it really, really doesn't. It's very much like a tried and tested kind of formula. So, you have 5 different types of racing that you can do. It's like touring cars, and there's an open wheel one, which is just basically called Fernando Alonso, who's like a former Formula One driver, and it's just... I don't know, the types of cars that he's raced recently slapped together into like some kind of a championship thing.
Imagine being so cool at something that you get a game mode to yourself.
I don't know, it feels very slapped together and like...
Yeah,
not
but
that
it's still a game mode.
Yeah, it is. I know, it is still a game mode, I suppose. Not that Fernando Alonso cares.
No, I'm sure he doesn't.
In some of the promo videos that he's been in, he looks about as interested as, I don't know, a goldfish. But yeah, this is like, it's fun, don't get me wrong. I don't want to like give off the impression it's a bad game. It's definitely not a bad game. It's enjoyable. The cars feel nice to drive. They kind of feel like go-karts, I suppose, like big oversized go-karts. Like,
so it really is like arcadey feeling.
Yeah, they handle like really well. But you've just got to brake before turns, unlike a lot of sort of other arcade games. But yeah, everything like feels really tight and fast and responsive. Even like the big heavier cars kind of feel that way as well, which makes it like kind of really fun with the steering wheel, I suppose. I've tried it both with a steering wheel and with a gamepad, and both ways feel really nice. I prefer it with a wheel, but that's just because you can kind of get a nicer feel for like the racing element of it. And that also gives a chance for the AI to kind of come to life a little bit more, because otherwise, like, I don't know, unless you're really good with a gamepad, you're just going to spend a lot of your time smashing into them. They've got this, they've actually got like a nemesis system in it, which is nowhere near as interesting as like what the nemesis system in, say, like Shadow of Mordor was like.
But it learns somehow, or tries to counter you in some ways?
So one of the things that they've talked about in sort of pre-release, and they also mention it a little bit in throughout some of the game's tutorialing, is they've got like 400 plus AI profiles programmed into the game. Basically, they have different levels of skill with different types of cars, drive with different levels of aggression. And I mean, whilst that doesn't tangibly sort of amount up to much of a difference that you notice while you're racing them, it does have like this kind of interesting system to it called the Nemesis system, where if you run into people and say like you smash into them, or like say you pass somebody on the last lap, or they're like just behind you in the championship, and they like might become your rival for the next couple of races going on, and it means that if you race them closely, they will like give you less room. Like they'll block you harder. They might even try and take you out if they're like an aggressive kind of driver. And so which just, I don't know, it doesn't really. It just gives you one sort of extra layer of things to think about.
I find that those kind of things in games, though, can make them feel a lot more personal as well.
Yeah.
Like, when you create a nemesis, it makes it really feel like it's your nemesis. And sometimes before games had this kind of, like, coding in them, those stories would play out in your head anyway, because you'd be like, oh, it's that red car again. Like,
Totally.
every time, red car.
Yeah.
Whereas this time it's actually programmed.
Yeah, totally. And I get what you mean. Like, theoretically, this kind of tries to do the same thing, but the problem is the race series that you're in are generally, they could be anywhere from like 1 to 3 races, and they're usually like 3 or 4 laps tops.
Doesn't really give you enough time then.
It doesn't really give you enough time to sort of get stuck. Like, I suppose you do notice some names over sort of different series, because like they do repeat, and the same drivers tend to race sort of the same series. I suppose they've got a program that way, but it also, like, it doesn't feel like it makes much of a difference anyway.
Because like I know that when I'm doing, it's totally not the same thing. But like whenever I play like Mario Kart, for instance, and I'm just playing against the AI, there's always one of those fuckers who becomes like the one that I'm just beating, or who manages to screw me. I'm like, bloody Peach! And it's like,
Yoshi.
Move, Peach! Get out the way! Yeah, and I guess like in my head, that kind of thing tends to happen to me in those video games anyway. But I thought it would be cool if it was like actually designed.
Yeah, and like they actually make a big deal out of it. Like this thing pops up, and it's like your
it was that guy again.
Yeah, and your like this thing pops up, and it's like your nemesis, and your
the same way that every time you ran into someone in Shadows, Shadows of
I love the idea.
Like, One Eye. Remember that time you killed him like 4 times in a row?
I love the idea that like the game stops, and then it's like a black screen, and that car just comes into screen, and the car's like, I'll get you this time, race driver. And then like, yeah, it's like red car, the speedy, and then you go
with the bus titles and everything. Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah,
that would be like infinitely cooler than what they do. It's just like this little thing pops up, and it just says Nemesis while you're driving, and it shows like their name. And then their little driver name has a little red icon over the top of it for the rest of the race, and maybe for the next race as well. And I don't know, it doesn't really feel like it makes much of a difference. They're all, like I said, they're all kind of aggressive anyway. Also, if you're playing on the kind of difficulty level where like you just drive past all the AI, that doesn't matter. None of that matters, because you'll just beat them by like half a lap anyway. So who gives a shit? But that said, it's a Grid is a totally competent arcade racing game. It feels like the old Grid, which in some ways is kind of disappointing, because Codemasters used to make the kind of racing games that I feel like, and they still do with like their licensed properties. Like F1 is still amazing, but I think they aren't pushing the envelope like they used to with these kinds of games. Like you used to really look forward to kind of the advancements that they'd made to the damage modeling, or like the graphics or something like that. There was always some kind of like tangible step, and this just feels like they've remastered a game from 8 years ago or whatever it was, like a game from the previous generation, which at the time was good and is still good now. To be fair, like if I was giving this game a score, I'd probably give it like a 7. It's very much it's a very 7 out of 10 game. It's totally fine.
It does the thing.
Yeah, it does its thing. Yeah.
Concrete Genie do the thing?
That is Grid. Yeah, just tell us about Concrete Genie, Hope.
I actually gave Concrete Genie a 7.
Oh, yeah?
What is Concrete Genie? I have no idea.
So Concrete Genie is this actually incredibly delightful little game. You play as this boy named Ash, and he's exploring his old hometown.
This is the PS4 one, right?
Yeah, correct. It's PS4 exclusive.
Right.
Colourful
So
one.
his hometown is like a pier, like a fishing town,
Mm-hmm.
and it's completely abandoned, except for him and his bullies. And he's like a little artist kid, so he likes to sit there and sketch and stuff, and his bullies find him and tear up the book, and oh no. And then he gets like shoved in this trolley cart and sent into the lighthouse. And they talk about a lighthouse ghost, but then one of your genies kind of that you like to draw becomes the embodiment of the ghost and implores you to basically graffiti the town so it's pretty again.
Mark Echo's Concrete Genie.
So,
Or
there's
Jet
like
Set
these,
Concrete Genie, maybe?
it's very inspired by Jet Set,
Okay.
which is part of why I like it. But anyway, it's got like Christmas lights on the buildings, and you want to paint near those. And painting is essentially selecting a sticker and then sort of dragging where it'll go. And say if you pick like a flower, you might drag upwards, and it'll draw the flower to the same line that you drag, but it'll fill in other stuff around it to make it pretty. So maybe it'll put some grass in there and things like that.
Need some like nice little sort of stylized animations and
Yeah, and
Sweet.
they all animate, and it's really cool. Like it's quite hard to make it ugly. It's
Okay.
very intelligently done. But I gave it a 7, and it feels like a low score given how much I loved it. But there's also, it was such a hard game to review because there are some serious things with it that are just stupid.
Oh,
Like,
it's one of those things.
yeah. So movement in it is fantastic. You have like the ability to climb up buildings and have a bit of a parkour and stuff like that. And the way they've done that, the character feels really light while still being grounded. So it doesn't feel like he's floaty or anything like that, but it also doesn't have the frustrations that games like Assassin's Creed can have where he doesn't grab the right thing or
Sure.
things are too hard. It's got a really nice like fluidity and levity to it, and movement is amazing. And then later on you unlock more movement abilities, which make it even more fun to
is
get
there
around.
a lot of like platforming kind of stuff?
So yeah, the buildings in the area are quite like leveled.
Yep.
So you might want to get on the roof to find different places to graffiti
Sure,
or little
right.
things to collect. You've also got to collect graffiti pages, which give you the new things that you can paint.
Okay.
Because your book got scattered everywhere, so you're picking up your old drawings and then you'll know how to paint that thing, so you've got a reference. You also have to avoid the bullies, and you do that by sticking to rooftops as well. You might need to distract them by calling. So you do spend a lot of time on the rooftops rather than
Right.
just in the city. So there's a reason to parkour, but it's also just super fun. What I don't like about it is it's got puzzles, and most of them involve you'll have specific spots where you can paint a genie, and your genies are of 3 elements, and you don't get to choose what you paint. It'll always be the right
The suitable
element
one,
genie.
right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And the puzzles are almost always calling your genies over to come solve the puzzle. So it might be like you need to destroy a tarp, so you need a red genie to come over. But when you're at the top, no matter what you do, there's only one button to call a genie, so it calls all the genies. So it's not like you have to think about the puzzle at all. It's not
I
you're gonna
see.
be like,
So it's more like a get to location hit button.
yeah. And it's really unsatisfying. And there was this one time where I actually needed 2 genies to solve the puzzle. And if I had have had to think of that myself, it would have been such a nice thing to solve. But because all the genies fucking come and do their thing, there was no point at which I had to think about that.
Right. So they just kind of made that a little bit too simple for
It's
you
too
to reach
easy.
to?
Like,
or
it's
can you avoid?
yeah.
Can you not use the genies? Is
no,
that
you
like an
absolutely
option?
have to. It's the only way to do it.
Right. Okay.
All right.
The issue with it is, like, I get that in a way some of the reasons it's a bit simple and stuff like that is it's kind of a kid aimed game. Like, it's the
Right,
kind of
yeah.
game that you could play at any age almost.
Right.
I think the painting would be difficult for some kids, like actually working out what it wants you to do. But I think the idea is that it wants the puzzles to be easy enough for everyone.
Right.
But I think the issue is that it's not really a puzzle if you just find a glowy thing and call a genie.
Yeah,
Sure.
okay.
Like, it's not like something that you have to solve.
Kind of gets a little bit by the numbers.
Yeah, it really
suppose.
does.
Yeah.
Even though I can't stress enough how much I enjoyed the overall just the motions of playing the game.
The package, yeah.
But the puzzles were so just they basically, there was no point to them other than locking you off that area until you found all the genies.
Right.
Which they could have done in a different way, maybe, and made it feel more like you were achieving something. The other couple of issues I have is it's super, super short.
Like 2 hours short?
Like, so my first playthrough was 6 hours, and that's when I was
Alright.
working things out and I got distracted. I went through it again to see how quickly I could just mainline it, and I did it in under 3 hours.
Wow.
Okay.
So it's crazy short.
Is this like a $30, $40 or...
No, I think it's like a $60, $70 game.
What? Okay. Okay, that really contextualizes stuff.
If I went through and I actually platinum trophied it within about 19 hours, so I found everything I could possibly do.
Yeah, wow.
And did it all. And I enjoyed doing it all, so that's good, but it really left... It was one of those games, you know how sometimes you play a short game like Untitled Goose Game, and you feel really satisfied with it? You feel like
Yeah.
they've explored all the mechanics they wanted to, and they've gotten everything out of it. Whereas this one, say my first playthrough, for instance, 6 hours, at about 4.5 hours in, it introduces combat,
Oh, okay.
and you have combat for like... until you've kind of finished the game.
The last quarter
and then,
of the game.
Yeah, and then it's gone again once the game's over. Like, you can go back
okay.
and still explore, but the combat ability is totally gone.
Yeah,
and
right.
it made sense from a story perspective, but they could have done it in a way that actually paced it through the game so you could learn it properly and get a better handle on it, and then probably have made the game a bit longer and also given you opportunity to explore it better. Like, it's one of those games where you play it and you're like, I really enjoy this, but there are so many missed opportunities.
Does it kind of rush you through it a little bit instead of sort of lingering on some
Yeah, I felt like the combat especially, like I felt really rushed through it.
Yeah, right.
Because the way combat works is you essentially can shoot the elements of the genies that you were creating. So you would shoot like electricity or fire or wind.
That could be cool.
And depending on... So there were a couple of like normal like small enemies, but mostly what you were doing were boss fights. So it wasn't even like you really got eased into it. It was like, here's a couple, like 2 rooms of small enemies, and now all you're going to fight is bosses, basically. And they'd have different shields, and the game tells you to attack with the correct color to destroy that shield.
Yeah, color matching enemies, classic.
Which, you know, could have gone somewhere. Like, it could have also given you the ability to solve puzzles by yourself, because you had these elements at your whim.
Yeah.
And it felt so underdeveloped. Like, I could see that there was potential to have layers to the combat, but I didn't even manage to work out if all the attacks actually did damage or if they just did status effects. Like,
Right.
I didn't feel like I had time to get
You
a
just sort of
proper
churned-
handle on it.
Yeah, wow.
Churn
Yeah.
through it, basically, right? Yeah.
It just disappeared. So, yeah, I really liked the good, but
A few low
it's
lows.
not even that these things were bad, it's just that they felt so empty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bummer.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
enough.
like, if this game had it had the potential to almost be a 10 out of 10 game for me.
Yeah, wow.
But, because,
But,
like, the
yeah.
things that I liked that much. But instead it was a 7 out of 10 game.
Which is still
Alright.
good.
Wah wah.
Yeah.
No, it's still excellent, and I still definitely think that if you have the chance to, it's really, really fun to play.
You've also been playing 80 Days.
Yeah, so
What's that all
this
about?
was the first game I reviewed for GameSpot recently.
Yay.
Yeah.
Hooray!
Thanks, James, for helping.
Ha ha ha.
James, have you not heard about 80 Days before?
I've not, but it's been around for. I might have.
It's been
actually.
around for a while.
It's been around for a little
yeah,
while.
it just
Is
I've
this
been curious
the
about it.
Switch
Switch.
version? Yeah.
yeah. It's pretty much all text-based, like all narrative. There's some minor visual things, like you can organize your inventory and there'll be like a picture of like that might try to evoke the general feel of where you are at any one time.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially you are... So you've probably heard the Jules Verne novel Around the World in 80 Days.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You are the butler, or the manservant, I suppose. So you're helping your master, Phineas Fogg, get around the world in 80 days. And what you're doing is you're making choices about where to go, who to talk to,
Right.
whether or not you agree to things. When you're on a train, do you look out the window or do you go sit in the bar and do you talk to people and meet people? And you're trying to find... Obviously, you're trying to get an optimum route in one sense because you want to get around in 80 days. But it's after the first playthrough, I did it in like 60 days really, really easily. So every time you go somewhere, you unlock new routes, and you may have to buy like a new train thing or talk to people or ask how to get to new places to sort of unlock your next step. And that feels stressful the first time because you don't know how long it's going to take you.
Sure, yeah.
But once you've done that, you're like, oh, that's not what this game is about at all. It's about all the little adventures that you get stuck in on the way.
Right.
And they're just beautifully written.
Yeah.
And you care about pretty much everything that happens to you and everyone you meet, even though you may only meet them for like a day in the game.
That's cool. So it kind of pulls you in immediately.
Yeah, and the world is really cool. It's got like that Jules Verne steampunk sort of vibe to it. And apparently like on every go around you're only going to find out like maybe like 2% of what there is to do in this game.
Yeah.
Because there are so many different stories. On my first playthrough, I got too close to like the North Pole, and basically my master, Mr. Fogg, was like, we're going to go to the North Pole. And I'm like, what? And he's like, I feel a drawing me to there. And that's the only time that's ever happened in the game. And we found this big stilt walker mechanic scene. And there was these texts that kept trying to ask me to be suspicious of these people, but I didn't want to be. I wanted to trust them.
Right.
And then it turned out someone was sabotaging stuff. And we got left in like the coldest part near the North Pole, just sabotaged, and we're just sitting in the snow waiting to die.
Great.
And the music just went bleak, and it just went the whole time, just this wind. And I happened to have some alcohol and stuff in my bag that I'd bought, because you buy and trade things to make money.
Yeah.
And so I was able to keep my master alive with it, and then we just suddenly got rescued. And it was this whole big adventure that was just like a couple of days in this playthrough that really felt like it was totally random in some ways. Like,
right.
Yeah. So do you think could that same thing happen again on another playthrough, or is like your route or are the routes that open up to you kind of not procedural, but like are they kind of just different every time? Do you think?
I think you could probably manufacture the same route, like if you tried to stick to exactly what you were doing. But I do think that little things like the day that you leave and things like that will play a part in.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a certain amount of like RNG based on seeding or something like that.
Yeah.
There's probably random events and things like that.
It was just.
Yeah.
Oh, have you played it, Patrick?
No, I remember. Well, I played a little bit of the mobile version years and years ago, and then Idle Thumbs was really big on it back in the day. I wanted to play more, but I was just like, oh, I'm not in the mood for a visual novel sort of thing right now, and then I just didn't get back to it.
It's obviously like it's a ton of reading, and you have to sort of get yourself into the mind space for I'm going to play a book now. Yeah,
but it's much more directed in some, or I guess systemic, I guess is a better way to put it. Like, there's lots of things that will flow into other things. It's not like you're like a typical VN where you're just making the 3 choices and then you're on the whatever route. It's more like there's a bunch of different things happening all at once, I think.
It really does feel like you're on this ongoing, constantly twisting and changing adventure. And when you're on a run, like, I was genuinely so intrigued to see what I would find.
Right.
Like, I actively went exploring to see all the new things, and I found so many interesting stories, and I know that I've barely unlocked any of it. So, yeah, if you're into these kind of, like, I know visual novel kind of games are not for everyone. You know, a lot of people like a lot of action in their games, and I'm usually one of those people. But I also really like books.
Reading's nice sometimes.
Yeah. It genuinely was just incredibly, intensely interesting and delightful.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yay. 80 days.
Bizarre.
Yay.
Sounds good.
Hooray.
And that's the Switch version, yeah?
Yeah, so I think mobile would be just fine too. I like the controls are pretty minimal. It's
Kinda
just picking
sounds
dialogue
perfect.
options.
It's pretty good.
I couldn't see there being a massive difference between Switch and mobile, to be honest. Yeah. Look, I think it's a great game. Like, if you're ever doing any traveling at all, like, play 80 days. It'll get you it'll solidly get you through most flights if you want it to. Like, it's you can pick it up and put it down. There's not like timed action that you've got to worry about. It's the best travel game because it also puts you in the mood for adventure.
Rock and roll. 80 days.
Sweet.
Sounds rad. So we've also been playing Remnant from the Ashes.
Well, we've been trying to
some
play
of us have been
Remnant from
trying
the
to.
Ashes.
It's been a bit of an up
I
and down
actually ended up
experience.
uninstalling it because I was just like,
Yeah, no, that's fair
can't-
enough. So
I can't be having with this.
What happened?
Yours
with you,
was
Patrick?
crashing?
You could
Yeah, mine was like just straight up crashing. Like I got through the tutorial, I assumed through the tutorial once because I got to some bit with a cutscene and a gun, and I was like, okay, here's where the gun is. I heard there's guns in this game, and then there was a gun, and then there was a Windows error, an Unreal Engine error or something. And then I loaded back in again. I was like, okay, that was a pretty, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever. And then it crashed even earlier, and then I tried another 3 times. I was like, nah, it's not happening. It's just not happening, which is, not the best first impression you want to give.
Definitely not. That sucks.
And in fact, it was also the last impression it gave because I was just like, yeah, bye, sorry.
Yep, that's fair enough.
No, it's incredibly fair.
Did you manage to get into it at all, Hope?
I did. I got through the tutorial. I got for the first gun mission where I actually got to use guns. I found the tutorial a little bit scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did find it like I actually jump scared slightly when the dude jumps through the
break
window
through the
at
window?
you. Yeah, and
Right?
I was like,
I was not okay with
wasn't.
that.
Yeah, I wasn't prepared for this type of game. I guess.
No. And also the other thing that kind of bothered me about it was that the animations of the enemies are really, really janky. Like it does that thing where they're all doing the same thing like at once or like half a second apart.
Because they look
So
like
you really notice it.
funky tree roots but
Yeah.
I know what you mean. Like
I kind of liked how big rate it felt in some ways.
Yeah, you see the gears
Something
moving.
about that just like I was both scared and like unimpressed by
Like
those
you're watching
things.
it like move from animation to animation, like because the blending isn't good or whatever.
My impressions of it were that it was honestly just a bit too bleak and scary for me to really get into.
Fair enough.
But
It is definitely bleak.
yeah, it's super bleak. And
It's very brown.
I think I picked the wrong class as well because talking to James afterwards, I tried once we get weapons you can pick like a class, and I picked the shotgun class because I noticed the enemies were often quite close to me.
Yep.
And the shotgun does not feel good.
That's the worst thing a gun game can have, a bad feeling shotgun.
Right? And I was really disappointed with it. But you also get like a sidearm, like a pistol kind of thing. And once I swapped to the pistol, I was like, this actually feels really good. So I think they might be very good at precise guns.
Yeah, see, that's the weird thing is that I went for the repeater, which is kind of the long distance
Rifle sort of sniper deal? Yeah, okay.
Sniper dealio. And that thing feels fucking great.
Okay.
I actually really like Remnant quite a bit. It is definitely bleak. It is a B game, that is for sure.
Yeah. I got the feeling I would like it if it hadn't crashed 4 times on me.
Yeah, I'm really bummed that it crashed on you because I get the impression that you might have liked it. Like, at least I get the impression that you could sort of appreciate what
I was feeling even the melee combat, to be honest with you, because I was just like, oh, this is really deliberate and sort of like, okay, solid feeling. Like, it wasn't
the
great,
melee
but
combat feels like it's got weight, I felt.
yeah, I like that sense to it, and it's sort of like, I was like, okay, if the gun combat is as interesting as this is, then it could be going somewhere. But
yeah, that's the thing.
Again,
like the melee combat is just not really even a part of it. Up to a point. Like it is for the.
It's
the
so
tutorial.
weird that it starts you off with just that.
Well, it's
yeah,
kinda
that was
like-
kind of annoying. Like, honestly, I was just like, this is the gun game. This is the Gun Souls. I want to play Gun Souls. Let me play Gun Souls.
It's
And
kind
like,
of a
nope.
reveal, which is a bit strange, and it doesn't really land. It's just
I
a
think
bit
it's
like,
because like the game sets itself up to look like it's a medieval fantasy almost style game. So then when suddenly there are guns, I think they were trying to be like, ho, it's not what you think it is.
yeah.
I don't know why they would bother because it's a video game, you know? It's like every reviewer is going to be like, this is the Gun Souls.
That's kind of what it is. It kind of definitely it definitely feels that way. It's a lot of sort of borrowed elements from the Souls sort of series.
From what I played of it, it didn't seem that difficult. But I do understand that changes.
It does once you reach the bosses. Bosses are massive pain. Massive pains. I've managed to get through a couple of them, and then I started smashing my head up against a wall of trying to protect the what was her name? The
Like an NPC or something?
the root
Is
mother.
it like the captain? Oh.
The root mother, I think, is her name. Who's like she's the the human connection to the root, which is the enemies, which the enemies are like these. I don't know how to
trees.
explain them. They're
Also,
kind of like
them calling them the
evil
root
trees.
as an Australian is very funny.
That's true. That's a very funny
it
phrase.
is. What do you mean they're called the root?
You gotta go get the root. Do
Oh
I?
boy.
Oh, this game
Gonna help
sounds
me
like a
with
bit
that,
of fun. Sorry, channeling my best rural dad. Yeah, but I mean, aside from, it's hard to speak to much else other than sort of the gunplay, because that's kind of the part that feels really good about it. Nailing
can
headshots
absolutely,
and weapon
because
impact.
it's multiplayer designed, right?
Yeah,
like,
it is.
It's designed for you to play with friends,
It is, and that's
none of
why.
us
Yeah.
So that's why we all got codes to try this out.
try to play
with the
together.
intention to
Yeah,
play
I mean, I
together.
kind of feel bad about that, but also like.
Well, I mean, that doesn't work. That's the problem. Like, if it's
Yeah.
crashing on your machine, then what are you supposed to do? You know.
Yeah.
And I
which
could
is
see
just
myself-
unfortunate.
Like, if I had friends who were into it, that would probably help take away some of the scary for me and
Yeah.
make it a bit easier to sort of get in there and have a go and maybe pick a class that doesn't use the crappy shotgun.
Yeah. So for me, it definitely feels like the kind of thing that would be really fun with co-op. Because I find it just moving through their kind of real bleak, broken, almost apocalyptic kind of world of just like old
Yeah.
factories and.
I heard there's like really cool environmental shit it does at some point, and I don't know. I was honestly thinking like, do I want to try it again at some point, or am I just going to watch someone else play it on YouTube? Because I was like, that kind of sounds interesting.
Yeah, it might be worth sort of watching, I suppose. But for me, the excitement definitely comes from the feel. Just definitely the crack of the rifles. But like I said, the bosses are a massive pain in the ass. And I think I don't know what the scaling is like, but
Do you think that'd be easy in a group?
yeah, I feel like they probably would be because
Probably because you can pay attention
distract
to
it.
ads and stuff, right? So
Yeah, so you can just like because
mobs.
there's-
I forget what the term is.
Yeah, there are a bunch of mobs that come out as well, which just take up a lot of your time and ammo. That's another thing is like the ammo can be difficult to come by, and I feel like if you had more people, maybe the drops might be a little bit better. Not like there's a loot system. There is
Or
like
you just have to share them
there is
between
like
more people.
Yeah, right. There is like a modding system where you can create mods at the home hub and then apply them to your weapons, which will like either give you more power or better armor or all that stuff. So there's like an upgrade element to it as well. But really, it's just a pretty straightforward shooty sort of Dark Soulsy style game. And I don't mind it, but also it's got a few technical issues. So just be wary of that if you go and try to jump into it. It's on the we were playing it on the PC, but I think it's also on Xbox and PS4.
I definitely think it's the kind of game that if you do have friends that like to play games regularly together and you're looking for something new and different, I think it'd be a good choice.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good choice too. Maybe console would be the place to play that if the PC is having some troubles.
I mean, it's just Patrick.
Yep, it's just me. Maybe it is my machine. I don't know, but
Who can say?
I'm just like, okay, well, I don't have time to fuck with this right now, so
That's
whatever.
Yeah.
enough. You have been fucking with River City Girls, Patrick.
Yeah,
He's
I
got
don't
so much
recommend
time
that.
to fuck with them girls.
To be
How do you
honest,
feel
I
about
actually finished it within 2 or 3 days after the last session, so I don't remember super much of it. Other than, I mean, it was a fun experience. It's really good pixel art and surprisingly really good music. It's got a whole bunch of really cool vocal tracks as part of the game because it's the sort of girl band aesthetic, I guess, as part of the theme. It's part of the what is it, the Kunio-kun series, which is Crash and the Boys, River City Ransom, that sort of thing.
Yep.
So it has some weird mythological ties that kind of suck and means the story. What I mean by that is that it seems really cool. It's got all these returning characters and stuff from these characters that are the last time you saw them, they were literally 8-bit and now they're full HD sprites, and that's really cool.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
But the story just kind of is treated almost like a complete joke and just disappears about halfway through it, and you're like, oh, okay.
Balls.
Which kind of sucks because
But
like
I
there's
was
lots.
invested.
Well, I mean, like it's one of those series where you're like, oh, the excuse plot is fun because these characters are fun, but
What
then
do you
halfway
mean?
through,
Do they
like
just change
the
face
characters.
and
I mean,
switch it up, and like the story just goes like out the window, and they just do something else? Like, what do you mean it goes away?
no, I mean, like, okay, so basically, I mean, it's like the sort of equivalent of "It Was All a Dream" to the story,
Oh,
I guess,
God.
which is like not like it's not literally that, but it's just sort of like that same sort of like, oh, pull the rug from under you sort of feeling.
Right.
So
None of what you did mattered.
yeah, basically, which like, I mean, it didn't anyway because it's a brawler where shit resets, and it's like, you know, it's really that style of an arcade game. But I think there's a way to do that sort of excuse plot satisfyingly, and this was like the opposite of satisfying.
Yeah.
That's very fair.
In terms of actually playing it, I like it a lot. I liked it so much that I actually started making my own brawler, I guess. So that was the extent to which I liked it. But yeah, no, it's fun to play as a brawler. It's got lots and lots of references to all sorts of stuff. It feels good to play. Apart from the bits which felt frustrating as fuck, but I couldn't tell whether that was just because it was like, oh, this is a hard game and you should feel bad until you feel good, I guess.
Right,
Yeah.
like kind of punishing.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
So
but,
that brawler you're making,
yeah.
is that in Game Maker too?
Yeah, that's the thing that I'm using to make a brawler.
What's,
That's really cool.
yeah, tell
Yeah.
us about it. Well, like, what do you
Tell
mean
us
you're
about
making
it.
a brawler?
Okay,
What does
well,
that
so
mean?
it's...
What do you mean you're just making a video game?
Well, I mean, okay, so two things. I've made like 2 or 3 prototype things in Game Maker before, the Game Maker 1.4 actually. So I made, what did I make? I made like a top-down sort of Hyperlight Drifter looking thing. Like got about fairly far with that, and then as usual gave up after about like a month and a half. And then I made a sort of shmup sort of thing, you know, top-down shooter, vertical scrolling thing.
Yeah.
Again, that was back in May this year, I think. So when October rolled around, I usually do like a thing a day project in October. So last year I did pixel art. The year before that I did just ink drawings or something like that.
That's cool.
And this month I was just like, oh, well, there's this thing called DevTober. I've been seeing it on my timeline. People just, you know, make a game project and upload like a GIF of progress every day. So I was like, well,
Yeah.
I may as well do that. And I've built the skeleton of a like platformer before, and a lot of these concepts are transferable. Like I've used the same sort of hitbox code in every project I've made. I've been working on time dilation for ages because I don't really understand it, so I wanted to figure that out.
That's cool.
My current project is input buffers because I don't understand how data structures work really. Like I kind of like I understand what they are, but I don't know how to implement them. So that's what I'm working on right now, except because one of the things I found is that DevTober is very single day progress focused, right?
Yep.
So you
Yep.
want to put something visual up. So I've been, and I'm like pretty good at animation, or at least rotoscoping animation.
I've
Which
seen
is-
your animations for this with the red dude and the blue dude fighting,
Yeah,
and I think they look sweet as fuck.
yeah, exactly. Like I know it's something that I'm like, oh, I can iterate on this fairly fast. I've got like a process down. If I find the right kind of video on YouTube to basically trace over, if you know what I mean, like because that's what I'm doing, right? I'm like, and if you think about it, that's actually what all animators do. They just have the like ability to film their own footage.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I don't feel too bad about this. This is just like a fun project, and no one's gonna like lose money over it or whatever. So I was like, okay, whatever. So
Man, it pisses me off how anti-reference the art world is when
Yeah.
everybody uses them and needs them
No,
to do
yeah,
anything good
like-
all the time.
Seriously.
you see that like Disney footage where like it's like, oh, all the Snow White stuff you saw, they literally just had an actress in there and she does the exact things, and then
Yeah.
like, you know, smiles really sweetly, does the twirl or whatever, and you're like, okay.
That is how you learn to do things.
Yeah, animation.
Everyone.
And animation is really cool. So the problem, I guess, is the code side of things, where I'm just like, fuck, I'm stuck in the wall again. And like one of the things I like about doing game dev is that you get this really good sensation for why games turn out the way they do. Sometimes. And like, I mean, that's not to say I'm going to be like lenient to, I guess, to games that are broken and that sort of thing. But like, at least you understand where it's coming from, right? You're like, okay,
I
this
think
was
it also like it helps with empathy a little
yeah,
bit.
I think so.
Because that's one thing to be like, this game is really broken and probably shouldn't be released, and another thing to be like, I want to kill the developers of this game.
Yeah.
Because those two concepts are very different.
Yeah, exactly. You're just like, I'm just like, okay, like I can't like right now I've got this I finally worked out, I've been working on like hit stun effects and the sort of like invisible things that happen when you like say you do a punch and you hit the opponent, right?
Player feedback.
There's like there's so much feedback in there that most people probably just brush over or don't know about because it's like milliseconds fast.
Don't know.
Like you've got like flash frames, you've got like visual FX. Like a lot of times the sprite actually or the model or whatever will actually vibrate a little bit on hit, and like most people never actually even look at that or see that at least like consciously. So
but if it's gone, you'd hell notice.
Right,
it.
but the thing is like, okay, how do you implement that? If you do the actual object shaking every time, you have to like then the hitbox starts moving. You have to do it a different way or whatever, and then like
Oh man, that's so much.
yeah. So it's actually like really cool as a sort of exercise of really small logical puzzles that is constantly going on. But the problem is every solution you make also messes up every other solution you made in some sort of slightly weird way. So I've got to the point where like every time I hit someone, it's firing off like 20 variables, and I'm just like, okay, I need to put this all into a script so I don't need to look at this in this way every time. And I'm sure there's a way that I need to load it into like a data structure later so I can load it off a JSON file so I don't have to manually edit it every single time. Game dev is fun and rewarding, but also like really sort of like, oh god, my brain.
Game dev is hard, so I
Yeah.
Absolutely. What's a release date? Can you give us a name? Give us a hot exclusive.
Yeah, when are we going to see you at PAX Rising?
Oh my god, probably never. If I release this on itch.io, it will be a fucking miracle, I'll tell you that much. Like, I have to, like, first I have to scope down. I haven't even touched the menus yet. I actually didn't bother implementing a HP system yet because I was, like, just focused on getting the hit impact feeling right. So,
great.
and like
Do you
making...
think this will be a project that you finish?
Maybe not. I think this is more likely than any of my other projects because I haven't fallen out of love with it the way I have with the other ones. Like, I really like Hyperlight Drifter, sort of the one that I was making, but the thing I really ran into was that I needed to do 8-way directions with that one because it was sort of top-down looking down. And to do 8-way directions, you need 5 sprites for every single animation frame. So, because you need to do like north, east, west, south, and then like northeast, southwest, and then you mirror some of them, basically.
Yeah, just say mirror them. Just mirror them all.
Yeah, you mirror them, you still have to do 5 sprites. So with a 2D brawler sort of game, you only have to do 2 sprites, or like even 1 sprite, so it's much easier. The sprite overload is not as hard.
More
the
than 3 sprites,
workload.
this game is cancelled.
Yeah, also it's really hard to get references for stuff from a top-down perspective.
Man,
whereas,
I can't
like,
believe
from a 2D
Game Freak
perspective,
won't
it's not
put all
hard.
the Pokemon in their new game.
Yeah, people are idiots. Shit. But yeah, I think I'm more likely to finish this one than not. There's a lot more help with it, and also I can translate this one over to my sort of platinum games sensibilities a lot faster than the other ones.
Neat.
So yeah.
When are you going to get your own moon mask?
Oh god, I don't even know what that means.
You don't know what it means.
We're just waiting for you to become Yoko Taro, that's all.
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay. That's not a moon mask, that's Emil's head.
When will you be? It is. Poor Emil.
You know what I mean? Looks like...
I think
It's like, welcome to game development, here is your oversized mask.
when will when will you reach Kojima levels of auteur?
Probably never, because he's just released Death Stranding, and apparently that is like there's the embargo is not up, but people I've been hearing from people who are like, yeah, this is Kojima. I'm like, okay,
Sure is
good to hear.
Sure is a game.
Just
a
as
Hideo Kojima
expected.
game.
Apparently there's like some straight up game mechanics. He spent 2 hours and doing innumerable amounts of trade shows, and there's still game mechanics he hasn't revealed to people or something, and they're just the most like bullshit things ever. I don't know. I have no idea.
Great.
So
Kojima zaniness coming up. I don't know what, like second week of November. I think that's coming out.
yeah,
Anyways.
I'm gonna play Outer Worlds.
Outer Worlds.
Outer
Oh,
Worlds.
for
Worlds is dead.
Obsidian.
Yeah, we'll talk
Obsidian's
about that
dead.
soon. Legends of Runeterra. Hope. What is that?
It is the new League of Legends card game by Riot. Because Riot having their like League of Legends 10th anniversary, and they're just like, hey everyone, did you hear about esports? Because we're making one of all of them.
Yeah,
And,
this is,
They have a
so
fighting game. That's the one. They showed like 3 seconds of the fighting game. I was
Yeah,
like,
there's
okay.
a 2D fighting game. There's a shooter, which people were speculating looked like Overwatch, but to me it actually looked more like Source.
It looked like
and
CS:GO.
It
Yeah,
totally
They've
looked
come
like
out and said that it's
that.
more like Source.
Although
it's an entirely new universe one, right? Like they're not like League of Legends characters now have guns or more guns
Yeah,
anyway.
we don't know much about that
So
one.
was that the
yet.
same game with like I saw 2 first-person shooter gifs come out of this, and one of them looked like CS:GO. The other one looked a little bit more like Overwatch because it had a character that
they're
shot
only
out like a
making
green
one.
cloud. and that cloud was
like an ability, basically.
Yeah, it was
what
like
you mean.
totally. Yeah, it looked definitely like an ability. Whereas
I
this,
thought they'd only announced one FPS style.
I think so. Yeah, I remember like a tactics,
maybe
the fighting,
I'm not
and
over
the
these
shooter,
announcements in the
and the
Slack.
card
Yeah.
game, of course.
So there
the card
was
game.
the card game, and then there was also like another mode for LOL itself,
Yeah.
and like a mobile version, which they said they were never going to do, but apparently they're going to do it because let's
Money.
make games. We like the dollars. We're mostly owned by Tencent.
Yeah, that was pretty funny in the wake of the we've kind of taken news off this thing, but did you know that the China thing is still going? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I'd heard about
Yeah.
that.
But yeah, like just to loop it around to LoL, it was just kind of funny for people to be like, oh yeah, League of Legends snatching in to scoop up all the disaffected Blizzard fans, and someone being like, they're literally owned by Chinese companies.
But to be fair, they have actually been a lot less rah 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 than Blizzard have when it comes
That's
to
true.
like speech.
Although they did
So-
come out and just directly ask all of their players and teams to just please don't comment on political stuff
I get it, but
in
it's
their
still
streams.
like,
Straight up.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's-
like look,
It's hard.
I also get it, but at the same time, like, what do you want people to do? You give people a
Like-
platform. Like, some people are just gonna feel compelled
And
to
these
use
things
it.
really, really
to-
matter.
Exactly. That's why these people bring these things up, because this shit
It's
matters.
not because they don't like it's
It's not a
because
joke.
People's
Yeah,
lives
exactly.
are actually being affected.
Exactly.
and
Yeah. This like these people aren't trolling. They're like they're genuinely trying to
They
get
care about a
message
genuine
out.
issue.
Yeah.
And
May as well just do it
I
now.
don't think you can avoid it, you know?
No,
it's like
you
games
can't
is
really.
politics is games. So.
Yeah, it's a big weird thing, and I suppose like there's also now this other element of it, like not to dig into it further, but I'm going to say this anyway. There's this other element of now like US senators coming straight out and
Yep.
just being like, "Hey Blizzard, whatever the fuck you're doing, stop it." You know, people like
Well-
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and like Marco Rubio, like two opposite sides of American politics, both coming out and directly addressing Blizzard. What in the fuck is going on?
I mean, it currently is news, so them doing
Yeah,
that is good
yeah.
for them. Like, that's the main reason they're doing it. It's like, obviously they probably care, and I'm not saying that they don't, but they also know that adding their voice to this chorus is good for them right now.
yeah, it's-
it looks good for them.
Well, I mean, it plays so like I think it's interesting to view this outside of America, given you know a lot of America's sort of anti-Chinese rhetoric.
Right,
that
but
you hear
I
a
mean,
lot.
let's not pretend that Australia is not currently riddled with weird anti-Chinese,
No,
and by anti-Chinese I mean anti-CCP specifically.
Absolutely.
Fear of national, like we've got literal like Chinese university saboteurs or whatever the fuck going on in politics
Yeah.
all the time. So
Yeah.
Absolutely, no, absolutely right. It's just interesting, I suppose, to see them using this as a way to sort of jump in on that limelight a little bit.
I guess the thing that kind of makes me proud in a weird way is that I understand that Blizzard's position is China makes a lot of money for us. And what I'm kind of, the thing that I'm kind of proud of is that we, as the rest of the world, I suppose, and probably the people in Hong Kong and, you know, who are against what China is trying to do, are doing our damnedest to make it as expensive for Blizzard to be, you know, be a pro-China as they are anti-China. And we may not be able to quite get there, but we're trying.
It's an interesting problem for American-based companies who do business in China to face, I think, moving forward.
yeah, it's probably worth an entire podcast of its own.
It almost
which,
could be an entire podcast.
we could
of its
probably.
own, to
I mean,
be
if
honest.
if I had enough research time, I would probably actually maybe suggest it as some sort of weird roundtable. But let's talk about video games instead. I think.
I know.
So-
yeah,
so
tell us
the
about
card
Sorry, I
game-
derailed that one, so that's my fault. That's on me.
We derailed that hard.
Hey,
Yeah,
what are you gonna?
Anyway.
Video game small talk. That's what it's all about.
I got to do a behind closed doors hands-on with Legends
Okay,
of
so
Runeterra.
I was curious about that because I was like, oh, I didn't think this one was out. I didn't know where you'd got your hands on it, basically.
Yeah, I got invited, and they
Let's see
said
for
that they'd give me
shenanigans.
lunch, so I said that I would go.
Oh, hell yeah, lunch.
How good's lunch?
And it was actually at PAX.
Okay.
And they had this hell secure room and stuff, and I was like, and then they made us like check all our shit so we couldn't bring any recording devices in.
Fair.
And I'm kind of sitting there going, nobody announces anything at PAX, like Australia. Like, what the hell? This is going to be like nothing. It's going to be like, and League of Legends is still a game, and we love
It's got
it.
a new skin.
Like,
The PUBG
but then
skin.
it was like a whole new game, like
Yeah.
this card game. We didn't see any of the other stuff.
Okay.
But we did see a card game. We did have it presented to us by like one of the game designers in America who was like Skyping in
Oh, wow.
and telling us about us. And then there were laptops there where we went hands on. I quite like digital card games. I tend to get a bit sick of them once they feel pay to win, but generally I enjoy, like, I like playing Magic, I like playing Hearthstone, so I'm into it.
I assume
it
the
does-
embargo's up if you're talking about it, right? Like,
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I wrote a whole thing for GameSpot about
Yeah,
it, because
yeah,
I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
hey, do you guys know about this? And they were like, what? I'm like, I can't tell you what, because I signed an NDA. But do you know about it? And they were like, shit, no. I was like, okay, sign this and then we can talk. But yeah, the way it works is it's kind of Hearthstone-y if I was going to compare it to any sort of digital
Existing
trading
card game? Yeah.
Yeah, that I know of anyway. In that every sort of turn you do get your mana,
Yeah.
and it does go up to 10. So it's not like Magic where you have to find mana and you can end up being just mana drained or whatever when you play, which I like. I think that it's good to have mana just be a given,
Yeah.
because I do find that, you know, it sucks in Magic when you're like, you're not getting any.
Yeah,
you've
you're
got,
not.
like-
Yeah, the deck's not feeding you right or whatever, and you're just like, I
it-
can't do shit, and it feels like weirdly more luck based than usual, right?
Yeah, exactly right. And their whole ethos around this game is to actually take as much of the luck out of it. They want it to be intensely strategic. And I don't know how effective they're going to be at that, because all card games are a bit
Yeah,
of luck.
you still have to draw though, don't you? So,
Right? Yeah.
Like, how can
So-
you remove that element from it?
And you can play like characters or spells, and it's mostly based around like your champions, which are like the legends
Okay, yeah.
from League of Legends, and they're all segmented into these different regions of Runeterra, and they seem to act kind of like classes. So like a bit like Hearthstone, you can have your mage class or whatever, or a bit like Magic where you got your colors. The regions seem to be like, this is the heavy hitting class, and this is the class that does like leaky damage, and you know, that kind of thing. And you can mix a couple heroes together in your deck depending on what kind of deck it is. But the interesting thing is they have level up conditions. So like one hero may need to do X amount of damage to level up, and that may be a really basic one. And another hero may be like, I need to target X amount of enemies before I can level up, and some of them will have more complex things. So you want to build a synergy between these characters to try to level them up, and then they become stronger and more effective.
Right.
Or you want to have it really, really different, so that no matter what you're doing, you might be leveling someone up.
Okay.
So like and then you want your cards to play into that as well. So the deck building side seems really interesting. The other thing that is quite different from regular card games is instead of it's still turn-based, but you'll have sort of turns within rounds. So any one round you'll have an attacker or a defender, and each person can have a turn and play a card and spend mana and stuff, and then decide to go to the next person for their turn, and then the next person might play some cards or some spells or whatever, and they'll have a turn. And until both of you, like, you don't, mana is for round, not turn, so you are still spending your mana, and you doesn't replenish when you change turns, so you've got to be careful with that. But until both of you pass, you don't go to the next round.
Okay, so the round continues basically until both of you are like, okay, I don't have any moves left that I want to do. So
Yeah, so it feels like you could bait people out
right.
or queue up things to try to take place in a certain way. And that to me is quite different from what most card games are doing at the moment.
So are there like cards with conditions that activate within turns and then within rounds, and then there's sort of like different, I don't know.
From what I saw, it did look like there probably were.
Yeah.
It was it's hard to get a handle on things in a quick glimpse. but it almost reminded me a little bit of Gwent in
I
that
think,
way.
I think it's interesting that they're, I mean, not interesting, I mean, obviously card games will try new things, but this seems to be stepping out from the formulas that have come before.
Yeah, because it's usually when a new card game comes out, you can be like, oh, it's just this, but with this aspect or something like that. But this one, I'm like, no, it's got a little bit of everything in there.
That's cool.
Does it sort of like take from, I guess, the LoL like 3-lane format in any way? Like, is that tried to reflect in the card game, or is it just a card game that just happens to have that like League of Legends branding sort of thing on it?
I didn't really notice anything that felt 3-laney. Your mana can roll over, but only up to 3, and they can only be used on spells. I think the Legends abilities are definitely reflective of the way they work in LoL, but I think that's about it.
Okay.
They are planning to introduce new characters and story through this game, because it shares the same world as League of Legends. It's not like Hearthstone where you're just people meeting up in a tavern to play cards. It's actually still a part of that world, so people who like the lore will probably want to play it just to get more of that. The other thing is, this is the most visual card game I have ever played.
Okay.
Like, when your characters level up, they take up the whole screen to do some animation bullshit. And, like, when you attack, like, I remember thinking when Magic first came out as a digital, like, on Steam, and, like, you'd attack and there'd be, like, the claw marks. I was like, oh, that's a bit intense. This game is, like, so extra with all its little animations and stuff. Sometimes, like, a sticker emoji might pop out or something, depending on what's going on.
Shit's
like,
popping off.
Like full Advance Wars, just draws, like zooms into a battle scene sort of thing.
It's really, really intensely visual for a digital card game. And the card art is absolutely stunning. But the other thing that's really interesting about
the card
this,
art was really cool. I saw that being floating around.
is you cannot spend money on random card packs.
Oh, good. So the blind boxes are out.
Not entirely.
Hope. All right. Explain. You had me and then you lost me.
No, so most of how you earn cards is through playing. And depending on how much you play, they stressed that different play styles, it doesn't matter what you want to do, you should be able to find things that you can do that will earn you cards. And then you sort of, you build up your vault, and then at the end of every week you get to open your vault. And that is somewhat randomized.
Okay, so the like stuff you earn through play is randomized?
Yes.
Okay, but
you cannot spend real currency on a randomized thing.
Yeah, so
what
the
you can
anti-gambling stuff must have them spooked, I think.
Yeah, you can buy... I think they also just want to be able to have that spin on their game, because that's a very attractive thing to say to people. Like, it's attractive to me. Like, I like the idea
and they
of not
still
being able to
have
do
the
that.
like gambling element to it, just in case you want, but you just can't spend the money. Okay.
So you can spend real money on what they call wild cards, which is like you spend X amount of money for a common and you can buy any common you want. You spend X amount of money on a rare, and you can only do that a very, very limited amount each week.
Okay.
So you get like maybe 5 of those a week or something very
buy
specific.
more slots to buy more things?
They said
buy to buy?
That's nice of them.
See, they really tried to basically be like, no, you're not going to be spending much money because you literally can't. I think they're going to let you buy a lot of cosmetic stuff because it is intensely visual, right? Like,
yeah.
You know that some pretty whack stuff is going to happen in this game once you can buy it. Like, it's going to be pretty.
Okay.
Yeah, no, like, I reckon there's going to be like emojis that you can throw up and all sorts of bullshit.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as that goes, they basically wanted to. They really were trying to stress that the way you get the cards you want is by playing the game. And part of me is a little concerned because maybe that means that unless you're like hell hardcore, you're just gonna never be able to do anything. But
I mean, that's kind of the way it goes with these games anyway, isn't it? Like, you're always someone who's new is always going to lose out to someone who's got experience. So, like, I suppose you kind of expect that. But if it alleviates the problem of like, hey, this person spent $100 on this game, there's no way
I didn't get the card they wanted.
Yeah, or that from the other side of it. Like, I just spent $100 on this game and I didn't get the thing I wanted. What the fuck? If they can find a way...
even Hearthstone has dust. which is where you can sort of deconstruct your cards.
I'm glad
into
you
dust
told me
and
what
then
that
buy
was.
whatever you
I was
want.
about to ask, like, is dust some kind of like drug? Was
I've been
It's
snorting dust
absolutely
all
some kind
day.
of drug.
No, so like, yeah, it's basically a crafting system where you break down cards into dust
Right.
and then other cards cost dust.
sure.
So with most games, like if you spend enough money, you'll be able to get what you want. But it really does feel like the Legends of Runeterra is trying to not really allow you to spend that much money
That's cool.
unless it's on cosmetics.
And it feels like a genuinely new approach.
Yeah, I'm actually really curious to see how it plays out as it develops further. It's not going to release until 2020, probably late, because they are doing a closed beta in early 2020.
Righto.
Oh, okay.
So,
Could see a
and you
mid-year,
can
but I don't
register
know.
for that on the website.
Oh, yay.
Neato.
Or you can just be me and eat Riot's food and get an invite.
It sounds like fun. Interesting.
No, I'm genuinely curious to see how it goes.
Yeah, cool.
Cool.
A few.
Talk me through some Apple Arcade stuff.
Yeah, I got a few quickies to go through. I've been playing a bunch of Apple Arcade stuff. I loaded up my phone and my iPad with a few games. I played through all of NeoCab.
Yeah, that sounded cool. That's the sort of more visual novel as well,
Cyberpunk-y,
right?
dystopian
Yeah.
future. Uber
Mystery
driver.
game.
Pretty much, yeah, kind of like a...
Serial Killer, is that the one? I don't remember.
Yeah,
There
it's
was like two Cyberpunk cab games, and this was one of them.
It's a little bit choosy.
Was there two?
There's like one that's been displaying at PAXs for a while and hasn't come out yet, I think.
Yeah, so
I don't remember which one that one
that
is,
might
but
have been NeoCab. That might have been this one. Although,
there's two, so...
yeah, fuck.
Are there two?
I feel like I think I know what you're talking about, but I'm also
Yeah,
worried
but-
it's maybe a bit of a Shazam situation, and I'm like,
Well, in any case, let's talk about the game you did play, I guess.
No, tell us about the other one.
Never.
Pat is tired about.
I'll keep it secret to myself.
NeoCab is good. It's like this kind. It almost feels a bit like a choose your own adventure game where you play this woman who has moved to this town called Los Ojos, which is basically like, I don't know, think like Silicon Valley, San Francisco in like 50 years time.
Brr.
You make a corporation called Capra, which is currently undergoing a push to ban cars outright, to ban manually driven cars outright.
Uber car,
Which-
was it? Robot cars only.
Yeah, with robot cars only, which directly affects you and your line of business because you work for a company called NeoCab, which is like basically you've just packed up your entire life and moved to this town to move in with your old best friend who you haven't seen for a couple of years because you had a big fight or whatever, and you're funding the trip through this work with NeoCab. And anyway, the story picks up. You're coming into town and you pick up a hitchhiker, and it kind of just goes from there. Some shit goes down, and your friend gets into trouble, and then you've got to try and sort of untangle this web of where she, like, your personal problems with her, and then like how does this mix up into the whole wider scheme of Capra's political handling, and there's a whole bunch of like sort of intriguing narrative to go through. It's pretty light sort of gameplay wise. It's very much all just like select the dialogue and see where it plays out, but it does have this sort of interesting emotional system through this bit of tech that you wear called I can't remember what it's called, like feel thing, something to do with
What's it do?
feel. It's basically just like a color wheel, like an emotional color wheel, just reflects sort of how
It's a
your
mood
character
ring.
is. It basically, yeah, it sort of shows and reflects how your character is feeling at the time, which kind of influences the
Responses
dialogue
you can
choices
give?
you can give.
Yeah.
Yeah. So say if you're feeling in a sad mood and 3 of the responses are kind of light and jovial and one of them's a bit heavier, you won't be able to pick the lighter ones because whatever you've done in the preluding moments will add up to your character feeling like shit, and they just won't be able to bring themselves to say
That's really
that sort of-
interesting.
it is really interesting, and it's also really well written. A lot of really great inclusive characters, and it's a really interesting sort of take on just being personal in a world that like is kind of removing that. Like you have a lot of you're picking up strangers, you're picking up passengers, and they kind of, it's almost like it's novel for them to have a human driver again, and they just kind of unload on you and share their stories. And sometimes that can be really interesting, and sometimes that can be a little bit weird and scary, and sometimes it can be,
really
these people actually think that you're a high functioning android and don't believe that you believe you're a human. And there's a few different ways that can play out. And it's really well written in that way, in that each of the stories and each of like the dialogue is fun to follow, and kind of exactly what you want from like a narrative adventure. So
it's always a little bit jarring in like games where you can pick what you say if you've just had like a super serious like conversation option, and then next minute you're like lol burp or something like.
yeah, that's very video games, isn't it? No, this takes a bit of a more considered approach, I suppose, to your dialogue, which it really plays out in some satisfying ways. I liked how my story wrapped up, and it's only like it'll take, I think it took about 2.5-3 hours to get through completely, and I played through that on my phone. I've also played a little bit of Sayonara Wild Hearts. I don't particularly like how that feels on the phone, but it's a fun game.
Yeah,
I've heard that you need a controller.
Well, to be honest, even the controller, it feels really swimmy to me. But
yeah,
it's like not really a game. I think is like what I said last time. It's more of an interactive experience.
Yeah,
I guess.
definitely. It feels like an interactive album.
Yeah.
Interactive
Basically.
soundtrack is what I hear people calling it. Yeah.
I mean, I still listen to the music. It's really good.
Yeah.
It just rings in my head, and it was really enhanced by playing it. Did you feel that way as well on the phone, in the like smaller screen size and stuff?
Yeah. So with the screen on sort of the new iPhone is quite good. So it's very crisp. And the colors are very they stand out very like vibrantly, especially with a lot of the sort of flat shaded textures,
like really crazy neon shit going on.
Yeah, very like stark.
It's got that really stark colors. Sort of
and so a lot of that stuff really stands out, and it's quite nice. It moves very smoothly, very very fast. It's just the controls felt really swimmy, which just like sort of belies the look of it. The look it carries itself as a game that would feel really good. It
looks like it should be on rails, sort of thing, but it like Snap 2. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But like
more like audio surf kind of thing.
Yeah, sort of like audio surfy or like I don't know, something a bit more granular than that even. But
no, I'd love to play Thumper.
Oh, Thumper! Yeah, no. I have. I want to play it. I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Thumper's really good. It's intense as hell.
It's really like everyone's like, this is music that's threatening. Like,
yeah,
it wants to murder you. That's how the music feels like.
I kind of got like from looking at Sayonara Wild Hearts. I kind of thought it might be
thinking
like Thumper, but instead of like threatening and intense, like really
it was
freeing
like poppy and I guess
But if it's not that exact, I suppose, then it's
absolutely
probably
not. It's very analog controls, which is really annoying.
Yeah, and it just kind of, I think, because of that, it kind of lacks the impact that it might have had it felt as good as it sounds and looks.
Yeah.
I've also spent a bit of time with a neat little color puzzle game called Tint, which is just a nice little puzzle game to do with color mixing and mixing color palettes, and trying to connect dots, connect one color to another, and you have to mix through colors to reach, to match colors up, basically. It's
sweet.
It's got a really lovely kind of look to it. The way that the colors mix and like come together, it's got this really nice like watercolor look. Which is it's just it's got a very much like it's very much a mobile game. But it just looks gorgeous.
Just a little satisfying puzzler.
Yeah. One of those little nice little things. And then sort of the last thing that I've been playing is What the Golf.
Yeah, I've been hearing really good things about What the Golf.
I only hear excellent things about this. I just want to... The best way it was described to me is you start playing this golf game and you hold down the button to do your putt and you putt and the golf ball goes. And then the next level, you hold down your button to do your putt and you putt and you go instead of the golf ball. And then the next level, you hold down your button to do your putt and the meter bar for your putt strength goes.
Yeah, so I've actually been trying to avoid all talk about it because I'm just sort of like, I'm going to play this and I want to be surprised. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, guess what? James is going to tell you all about it.
shit, James, start from the beginning.
I'll do my best not to like spoil a lot of the cool sort of gameplay stuff because it is very like WarioWare in that way. That there's a lot of different surprises. It is very much all the same sort of type of game. You are hitting a ball into...
You're playing golf in different ways.
You're hitting a thing into a thing.
Okay, but all sports are hitting a ball with a stick.
Not necessarily.
No, give me a sport. I worked
Karate.
this out when I was really, really, really feverish, and all sports are hitting a ball with a stick.
Karate.
Long jump.
Long jump.
Long jump,
I mean,
right?
it's kind of got you.
Uh-oh.
No, he doesn't.
Uh-oh.
Because your legs are sticks and the earth is a ball.
That's bullshit. I'm banning this conversation.
First, the
right
Earth is
now.
a disc. Secondly...
Anyway, what the golf is, it might be one of the most surprising games I've played this year, and it's actually good enough, I think, to be in my top 10 favorite games of the year. It's
That's really cool.
fucking-
Is it only on Apple
really,
Arcade?
really
Is it
good.
on other things
Is it
at
what,
all?
sorry?
Or is it only on Apple Arcade?
I don't
Because I don't have
know
Apple
if-
devices,
I don't
so
know if
this
it's
is
an Apple
bad.
Arcade exclusive. That I don't know.
I mean, like even is Sayonara Wild Hearts marketed as an Apple exclusive? I don't
No,
remember.
it's not.
Yeah. Okay. So,
I think
don't
I saw
remember
people
with-
playing that on Switch.
Yeah, I feel like Sayonara Wild Hearts I played on Switch, but like What the Golf I don't know about. So I don't think I've seen it elsewhere, but I haven't been looking for it as much. So anyway, I want to play it, and I don't have an Apple device, so that's going to be a problem.
I'm in the same boat, buddy.
Very funny game. Kind of plays on some of the sort of same beats as Donut County.
Yeah.
A little bit. Very cool little game. Play it. How is Overwatch on the Switch, Hope?
I don't know.
Has that been your experience?
Technical issues. The episode.
Yeah, so the first day I managed to get a little bit further every time, but didn't actually ever manage to get a game.
Uh-huh.
I even tried to game just with AI, just to do some tests on things, and just couldn't connect to the servers long enough.
Bummer.
Yeah, it was real bad. Then last night I tried again, and I managed to get a Junkenstein's Revenge game, which is the Halloween event where you are just with two other people and you shoot AI.
Uh-huh.
And that worked pretty good. And then I tried to get different kinds of games for a really long time and I couldn't get anything. And then eventually I did get into a quick play. So I've only technically played 2 kind of games.
Okay.
Despite trying for hours to play games.
That's not a good experience.
No.
Yeah, when I was playing,
Not
it
ideal.
did feel like, for the most part, it was alright. When there was a lot happening, it seemed to jank up a bit, but it's hard to tell if that's the servers or the game, because the servers are obviously not doing the best. So, yeah, I put this in quickies because I can't really say much about it yet, other than I probably wouldn't buy it in the state things are right now. Maybe if they improve on it and it gets better, it looks like it could be capable. Like, it looks like it has the potential. But also maybe don't buy it because Blizzards are being dicks right now.
Sounds like they're putting out fires all over the place at the moment,
Yeah.
including their server
They
room.
cancelled that launch event, didn't they?
Sorry, Pat.
They cancelled the launch event at in New York City at the Nintendo store.
Ah, right.
Yeah. Look,
I mean,
they
that was
can't
related to
handle
this
the
and
amount of
then
people that are
also-
going to show up in Winnie the Pooh costumes. So.
Yeah. BlizzCon's in what? In a week
Like a
and
week
a half?
and a bit. Yep.
Let's
Get your
let's see how
popcorn
that turns
orders.
out.
It's not a
in.
good timing for them.
Yeah.
Um,
I had one last game actually to talk about very quickly
Yeah,
before. It's called AI: The Somnium Files. It's by Uchikoshi, who is the writer for Zero Escape, the 999 games.
oh, yeah, cool.
Which are really fantastic. And this looks like a sort of evolution of his formula, because the last one he did was what was it called? Zero Escape. Damn, I actually forgot the name of the third game because that's how memorable it was, unfortunately. Like 999 is a fantastic series, but the last game, Zero
The
Time
next
Dilemma,
time
that's
Pat
the name.
meets me, he's going to be like, what was your name again? And
Oh,
I'm just going to
rude.
know.
Rude. It was called Zero Time Dilemma, and it was like one of those like, oh my god, I can't believe it actually got funded, and then it came out and we were like, oh my god, I can't believe this actually got funded. Which was, like, because he is like he started as a visual novel game, and 999 is like excellent. And then it went to VLR, and he was like, I've been experimenting with 3D. I think this could be cool. And then by the time he got funding for Zero Time Dilemma, he was like, I really like Telltale games, but I can't make them yet. I don't have a production pipeline. This game strikes me as like he finally got the production pipeline working, basically, and it feels a lot more like, okay, this is what he wanted to do, but with like this is much like a completely different sort of setting. And the basic idea is like, I haven't actually like gotten super far in it, but so far it's like you're a detective in the future and there's cybernetic crap and whatever. And then there's like an AI, you've got some sort of cybernetic eyeball, and the AI lives in the eyeball or whatever, and it's helping you solve crimes. And then the way it helps you solve crimes is you go to sleep and then the AI turns up and manifests in your head and it's like, let me check out this dream logic. It's going to unlock logic gates in your mind. And I'm like, okay, cool, let's roll. And that's what's going on so far. And I don't really know what's happening, but it's pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah, that sounds mad.
That sounds extremely your shit.
I will have more on that later. I've been hearing a lot of good stuff because his games especially are the type of visual novel where the first 3 hours you're just sort of wandering around in a daze, and then you start finishing routes, and then stuff makes more and more sense. And in these games, instead of finishing one route and you're like, okay, that was my route, I'm done, you have to finish all of the routes, and they all tie together into a single like Uber story, basically.
See, I like the sound of that theoretically, but I think in practice that would make me so angry.
I 300% agree, because the first game suffered from this thing where you couldn't like... at least in the second game, he sort of developed this thing where you can jump around from node to node and like just jump straight to the point before you had a decision. But before that, you had to literally start at the beginning of the game, fast forward through every decision point, make the different decision point, and then progress onwards.
No.
So that sucks.
That sucks.
And
Jump
like
around.
And it didn't have a skip button for puzzle
Jump
rooms, so you
around.
just had to do the puzzle room again.
Jump up, and get down.
Thanks, Hope.
You're welcome.
I'll tell you more about that later.
I just had to share my pain.
Last game, I finished Borderlands 3.
Right.
Borderlands
I
3.
mean, great.
Okay.
Is it a video game?
It is definitely a video game. The humor doesn't get any better. The character that I played, the operative, who is like some Irish like hunter dude, made me laugh quite a lot because he reminded me of my old Irish housemates that I used to have.
Okay, well, I guess humor is where you find it.
So yes.
You trying to say all Irish people are the same?
That is precisely what I'm saying.
They are
Happy
like
murderous bounty
potatoes.
hunters.
It was, that game is totally fine. The combat is actually really good.
I feel like you're going to be more than totally fine this year to
I love
stand
the
out.
gunplay, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff happening.
Well, so that's the thing.
How
is
d-
that
how-
in the case of Borderlands, like the combat is actually really great. It's just all the rest of it just kind of wipes a lot of that shine off and kind of dirties it up quite.
Kind
a
of
bit.
feels a little bit like how I feel with Concrete Genie. Like, I really enjoy playing it, but there's just enough stuff in there to be like, eh.
Yeah.
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 You
That
get
sucks.
points knocked off.
Yeah, so a bit of a bummer. Although I was glad to finish that. I will probably mop up a few of the side quests and play a little bit. I might grind out until I get to level 50. I finished the
Are
game.
you playing
at
with
level
people?
No, I soloed it.
Wow.
Which, well, I mean,
That's dedication.
I like Borderlands, but I've always liked Borderlands, so, you know.
I've always liked Borderlands, but I think part of the fun of them for me is playing with others.
Yeah. I mean, I would have played with others, but, you know, that's just, I don't always have time to play games with other people, so I just...
It's hard to tee up now that I'm an adult.
Yeah, I know, right? When you're an adult especially when you're an adult with a full-time job and also a second job that happens to take up a fuckload of time. My casual game playing sort of takes place extremely early in the morning after my cat's waking me up. Happy days. And note this: most other smart people are asleep around those hours, so.
Yeah, I always
Yeah.
see tweets
Hard
from
to
you like
co-op.
hella early, and I'm like, what the fuck,
Yeah,
James?
just random video game opinions at 5:30 in the morning. Oh, I just finished this
Yeah.
game. Here's 5 tweets on how I feel about it before I've
Yeah,
had coffee.
I'm like, James, go back to bed.
So that's it. Video games. Borderlands 3 done and dusted. Maybe I'll play a bit more of that. And what else do we have on the horizon? It's like big game season. It's begun.
So there's actually a couple of games that are out that I just have not picked up because I'm like, I'm playing this like long-ass visual novel and it's going to take me forever, so I'm not going to buy this now.
All right. So
I
want to get
John Wick. Yeah. What were you looking to get?
I want to get Doraemon Story of Seasons.
I was actually hearing good stuff about that, but there's like a Harvest Moon on the horizon, and then a Rune Factory 4 and a 5
that
at
is
some
also
point.
a Harvest Moon, essentially.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying though. I'm just like, there's a Harvest Moon that I will like, a different one that I want to play.
When the fuck is that? When is that Harvest Moon apparently supposed to?
Oh, probably the future.
Yeah,
it's like a Friends of Mineral Town remake. I want to play that again.
Yeah, right. That looks like it'll be fun.
So Doraemon, that looks good.
But really, for this week. Oh, sorry. Yes, go on. What were you saying?
So John Wick Hex. What is it?
John Wick
What the
Hex.
fuck it is.
I thought it was Hex.
Yeah, I don't know why I've written Hicks here. That's cool.
It's just like rednecks.
I like the idea of it, but every time I see it, I'm just like, this animation does not hang together in the way that you want it to.
No, it looks like
it looks weirdly jank, I guess.
It sounds like it could have worked, but I think are you specifically referring to like sort of the replay
playback
animation,
mode, I think,
the playback animation?
Because like apparently, like playing it as the tactical game apparently is really good, but then like it just doesn't look great because it's just like, okay, move to this spot, crouch down, load animation.
It is very binary in that way, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. Indivisible is out. That's the Skullgirls team.
Yep.
I really want to have a look at that as well. They're well known for their
it looks
fighting
really
game
cute
engine stuff.
and fun.
This got a good intro by Studio Trigger, all sorts of stuff. Very interested. And then Disco Elysium is the big one that I didn't hear crap about until it came out, and then suddenly everyone's like, you guys, text-based role-playing games are back.
Yeah, so I was actually listening to a podcast earlier today that was talking about this, and it sounds incredibly interesting, but also potentially crazy problematic.
Yeah, I've seen some good... I mean, actually, most of what I've been seeing of it are screenshots of the dialogue, which I think is really funny. Probably because that's the entire game, as far as I can tell. But
so it sounds like it's just incredibly well written, and there are some really interesting concepts in there. So you're kind of like a cop, but in a world where cops aren't quite the same as what they are in our world.
Cops are criminals.
So, yeah, like it's kind of hard to work out. Like you're a detective.
Hey-o.
Yeah,
we can't bring more politics into this than we already
and like
have.
I was hearing that one of your abilities is tied into what your idea of a cop is, because a lot of it's about your inner workings of your mind.
Yeah.
And like your different sort of personas and psyches and things that are going on in there. So they all sort of build up to make you who you are.
Righto.
Yeah.
And so when I was listening to a podcast, they were talking about how apparently their idea of a to be able to complete this jumping action, which they felt like a police officer should be able to do, they had to take off their pants because their pants were like track pants or something, and they were like, a police officer never wear these. So they had to take the pants off because in their head they were like, I can't wear these and be a police officer.
No one will ever
and
take
then they
me
could
seriously.
do the action.
I'm far too comfortable.
The idea of the sense of self and stuff like that. Yeah.
But I've heard, so like I think it does some things really interestingly, like introspection and different sort of moral codes and all that kind of stuff really, really well.
Oh gosh.
But also it sounds like it has a bit of the Joker problem where it's like a white man who exists in society and doesn't know where he fits in society. So
fair enough. Well,
I don't know.
Yeah,
you'd have to play it to really evaluate on those terms, I think, is the thing.
I would.
Oh yeah,
would
like I
love to
can't
be able
comment
to-
beyond what I've heard.
I'd love to be able to play it. I'd love to be able to find the time to play something like that. It sounds wonderful. I'd also love to be able to find the time to play through, like, I don't know, the re-releases of Planescape Torment and Icewind Dale or something along those lines. But that will also never
Apparently
happen
they're pretty good on Switch and
because
stuff.
The Outer Worlds is out this week.
Yes, I'm very looking forward to that.
I got Game
stuff?
Pass.
Yeah, that's what I was like, that might actually push me to pick that up. I want to play that video game.
Yep, I want to play that too. So I think
got Game
after I'm done
Pass
with
to play
October.
The Outer Wilds, and now I'm going to play The Outer Worlds on it.
Yeah, I'm sure they're very happy about the similar names still. It's like,
yeah, so it looks like everyone's got that to look forward to.
I think
and
so,
then, and then we hit early November, but I suppose we can... Actually, is Death Stranding out by the time we do our next episode? I don't think it will be. I think
November
it'll be
8th.
close.
Yeah, the embargo would be up by then, hopefully.
So
right?
the embargo's up on the 1st of November.
Okay.
Okay.
So we have about a week and a half until we hear. Oh yeah, so it's a long way until.
That question depends on if we're moving to weekly episodes.
I don't know if we are. I don't think we are. We have been thinking about it, but I don't think we are. I think we might stick with the fortnightly for a little while.
For whatever reason, a preview embargo for Jedi Fallen Order just lifted, I think, very recently, and it's sounding more and more interesting. Not that it wasn't, I suppose, but it just sort of got buried by everything else at some point.
It looked really generic in the trailers, I felt.
Yeah,
and then...
that trailer at E3, especially the one that they were like, oh, this is the big showpiece, and it's just like, oh, he's going to walk forward through a bunch of corridors and cut people.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Whereas, like, from what I've seen of people giving their impressions who've played the game, it actually looks like it's got layers.
Yeah, people are like, oh, this is like Souls-like, but also it's like Metroidvania-ish or whatever. And I'm like, okay.
I'm interested.
I'm always keen to see what Respawn come out with, because they have not really done a bad thing yet. I don't know if they've made a bad
so
game.
that's mid-November.
I mean, the bad thing they did was make the protagonist look like Archie got punched in the face.
Fucking wham! That's funny.
Thanks, James.
Anyway, we're all feeling, I think, a little bit bonkers, I suppose, after PAX Australia. It's like we're a week and change removed from PAX, and everyone's just like a little bit sick and tired, and just like, please let it in.
I'm still kind of sick.
Yeah,
like,
amazing.
my nose is still a hellscape of disgusting. Thanks, PAX.
Yeah, right. I suppose, I don't know, is there anything else anyone want to talk about while we're here, or like should we just
about
wrap
video
this thing
games?
We've got our recommendations.
Yeah, our recommendations are good. We have one recommendation, and it's really fucking good.
Yeah, and it's both.
Yeah, we both have a very strong recommendation that everyone's probably already done
okay,
already.
so just like recommend it to me, because I haven't watched it yet, but I want to watch it.
Oh my god,
it's on
what?
Netflix, James. You've got to watch Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh, there you go.
The series, not the movie. Holy shit! Don't watch the movie.
Watch the
Don't
movie.
watch the movie. Watch
It
the
was
series.
so disappointing.
Right.
Holy shit!
Really bad.
I did like what they did with Aang's tattoos, though. I thought they were cool in the movie.
Why do I need to watch Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Because of bending.
What? I can watch Futurama if I want to see bending.
Oh my god, how
He's
dare
a different type of bender.
So the concept of manipulating elements is pretty common across a lot of different, fantasy stories. But what's really cool about bending in Avatar is it's essentially a martial art. So they have to know the specific moves and things like that relate to the way they manipulate elements.
They have to know the syntax.
Yeah,
Correct.
I guess that's actually a good way to put it, because most of the time wizards are just like wave your hand, you do the thing.
Yeah.
But like Avatar is like the wizards have to be buff as hell because they need to be able to do the martial arts maneuvers to do the
it's
thing.
a learnt skill.
That's cool.
But what's intense, like what I really, really like about it is they managed to apply something like earthbending, for example, in so many unique and different ways. That means like when you first introduced to it, you're like, oh yeah, they can manipulate earth. And then you're like, hold on a second, their entire houses are made out of earth. They don't need doors. They make them when they need them.
Yeah. Or they've, I just got to the Omashu episode again, and they've got this whole like mail system based on the fact that because they can like levitate rocks and shit with their mind, they're just like, oh yeah, we've just made this elaborate slide system, and the way you push stuff up and down the like delivery system is by using earthbending to like punt a cart like 3 stories high and then lock it into place.
And it's just like the way they managed to like it feels like a lot more believable that these tribes of people have grown up with these abilities and they've become integrated into their lives and their technology.
Yeah.
And that's what I like, the martial arts aspect, and that like the story of Avatar is still very good, but those are the things that I love about Avatar.
I'm actually really impressed with the story again, and I'm starting from the very beginning, and like do you know the basic premise, James?
No,
at all?
No, not at all.
The Fire Nation attacks.
Yeah. Basically, it's just sort of like, okay, you've got the 4 elemental nations or whatever, and then the Fire Nation wiped out one of them, and it's in an eternal like 100-year war.
Sorry,
with the other
that's
2.
super fucking cool. Can you imagine being a part of like a nation that was like the Fire Nation or the Wind Nation or like?
Right?
Yeah. That's
it's
what I'm
such a
saying.
cool concept.
Like, it sounds really sort of cliche at the beginning, but the way they treat it with such gravity, and it's treated so
well.
like I don't know, realistically, like it's a whole world constructed from these ideas of it.
The world and the lore feel plausible.
I think
And then
like
also-
it doesn't
right
feel
now.
like airy fairy.
Yeah, and also even
Yeah.
though it's a children's show and it like has very clear like, oh, this is the message of the week. Don't be
and
a
it
sexist dumbass or
absolutely-
whatever. But
it does start off really kiddie.
yeah.
Like it takes give it time to get into its depth.
But I think even knowing that it is kiddie, and like I think the second season is where it really hits the ground running. But even that first season, like in the third episode or even in the second episode, it's just sort of like, oh, this is still a war story.
Yeah,
this is
right.
like a
Yeah.
kid who is the last survivor of his race.
Like, this was
you know, his-
genocide.
yeah. And it's just like, yeah, this was genocide. Check out this genocide. We
Yeah.
can't hide the truth from him forever. Like,
You can't
oh my god,
hide
that's so
the genocide.
like that's such a deep theme for like the third episode of this series.
So, and the Avatar character is a reincarnation of this being that is the bridge between the spirit world and the real world, and he or she or they can manipulate all the elements, but they have to learn how, because they'll come from one tribe and they won't necessarily know that they're the Avatar for a while, so they'll only learn that method. They won't necessarily know that they can do the other things. And then they have to come to terms with having all these past lives that still live within them, as well as being basically the savior of the world.
Yeah, it's a really strong recommend. I love it.
It sounds cool.
So
like
good.
I'm not always
Yeah.
convinced that I need to watch an anime that you'll recommend, but like this
It's
actually
also-
sounds proper. Like it's like something that I could get into.
Yeah,
It's also because it's made by American guys. They're American, right?
yeah. The writers are anyway. I'm pretty sure it's
Yeah.
animated by South Koreans, like everything else.
Yeah.
is.
You can tell in some things that it is definitely animated by the Koreans because it's just got that flair to it.
Yeah,
Or,
there's
like,
actually a lot of like really crazy, exaggerated facial expressions in the first couple
Yeah.
of episodes that I was like, oh man,
takes
I
a
completely
while.
forgot how cartoony it could
It's
like whip
so
between being really
cartoony.
serious and then being like just super like Warner Brothers almost style.
Yes. But because it's written by two like Westerners, I guess, if you're not super into anime, it's not got all that daunting stuff that you may not be used to.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's a bit more like a Western cartoon in some ways, which makes it kind of it's a bridge between our worlds, much like the Avatar.
Oh boy.
on that note, hey Patrick, have you got any writing out there that like you want to spruik?
Yeah, what was the last thing I did? It would have been on Goose Game, on the Guardian at the moment. So that was a while ago at this point. So I kind of forgot that I did it. To be honest with you.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
Hope, I know you've had a lot of work out recently. What do you want to tell people about? You've been on GameSpot a lot lately.
Yeah. So if you guys were interested in Legends of Runeterra, I did a write-up about it for GameSpot, so you can find out more about it there. Or I guess the other most recent thing I've done was actually with you, James.
Ooh.
Oh yes, that's right. The obviously we were all at PAX Australia, and Hope and I were there along with James O'Connor, looking at our favorite
The three Jameses.
Yeah.
Me, James, and James.
Looking
A James.
at video games, playing our favorite video games. At our favorite indies.
PAX Australia.
Basically the best indies that we could find, and we wrote about our favorite
There were a lot of them
ones.
too. Like a lot of good indies, like just all over the place.
Lots.
Yeah,
of-
it was a good time.
It was a good time. There was a lot of good stuff there that we liked, and we actually talked about a whole bunch of them. In fact, almost all of them on the last episode of Video Game Small Talk, which we recorded live on the PAX
show floor.
thanks to our friends at Audio Technica Australia. That was a great episode. You can also that's up on your feeds now. You can listen to that and enjoy it just like you are enjoying this one. You can tell all your friends about it. You can also email us at vgst@videogamers.com. Patrick, where can people find you on the Twitters?
On Twitter, you can find me at Jinto_AU.
And Hope,
Hope_Corrigan.
rock and roll. And you can find me at J_Swimbanks. We will see you next time. Peace.
Later.
Later.